It started the night Ronald saw Latasha dancing alone under the streetlights, outside a late-night diner. The kind that smelled like burnt coffee and old fries. She moved like the world didn't matter, like she didn't owe anyone anything, and maybe that was what got him. That quiet confidence. He had just come out of a messy breakup with Nicole, a relationship that drained more than it gave. He wasn't looking for love. Not that night, not that year, but she was there, spinning in the dark, laughing at something only she could hear. He watched her from inside his car for a few minutes, unsure of what to say or do. Then, as if pulled by something he couldn't name, he stepped out and walked toward her. "You always dance like nobody's watching," he asked, with a half smile. She stopped, her long braids catching the wind, and looked at him. No fear, no surprise, just curiosity. "Only when I think the moon's in a good mood," she replied, flashing a grin that made something deep in Ronald shift. They talked for 2 hours right there on the curb. She told him about her dreams of becoming a writer, her habit of walking at night to clear her head, her love for old music and almond croissants. Ronald listened more than he talked, something he never did. By the time they said goodbye, he knew her number by heart. It started slow. Coffee dates, movie nights, late calls that stretched past 2 a.m. Latasha was different. She didn't ask him where he was every hour, or complain about not posting her on social media like Nicole did. She didn't care about appearances. She just wanted real. Ronald gave her that, or at least he tried. What he didn't know was that Michael, his best friend since middle school, had also met her. Weeks before Ronald did, at a bookstore. Michael never mentioned her, not even once. Maybe he didn't think it was serious. Or maybe he knew what it could become and wanted to keep it quiet. When it finally came out, during a group hangout, it felt like the air got sucked out of the room. Michael saw Latasha walk in and froze. She saw him and stiffened. Ronald noticed. Nicole, who had been invited by some twisted sense of closure, saw it too. "Y'all know each other?" Ronald asked, his voice steady but cold. Michael scratched the back of his neck. "We met a while back. Didn't think it was a thing." Latasha looked straight at Ronald. "We talked. We hung out. Once. That's it." But Ronald didn't believe it. Not fully. Not with the way Michael looked at her. Like he still wanted something he'd lost. And the way Nicole, who never missed a chance to stir the pot, leaned in and whispered, "Told you. She's not the kind you keep." After that night, things changed. Ronald pulled back. Latasha noticed. She tried to reach him, explain things, but he kept finding reasons to be busy, to not call back. Trust wasn't something he gave easily, and now it felt thin, brittle. Michael didn't push either. He knew he'd messed up, but part of him still wanted her, still believed he had a shot if Ronald walked away. And Nicole? She was watching it all fall apart with a front row seat and that smug smile she wore so well. Weeks passed. Ronald didn't see Latasha. Didn't see Michael much either. He buried himself in work, in meaningless dates that ended before they began. And then one night, he ran into her again, Latasha, sitting alone on a bench near the same diner where they first met. She looked tired, not physically, but tired in her soul. "You ghosted me," she said without looking up. He sat beside her, quiet for a moment. "You knew Michael before me. That messed me up." "And that's all it took?" she asked. "You didn't even ask me what really happened. Just decided I was lying." Ronald didn't answer. Because maybe she was right. She stood, pulling her coat tighter around her. "You both loved me, but neither of you trusted me. That's what hurt the most." And just like that, she walked away. Ronald sat there, staring at the place she'd been, wondering if he'd just let go of the only real thing he'd ever had. The days after that conversation hit Ronald harder than he thought they would. At first, he tried to brush it off, tell himself he didn't need her, that he was better off not getting tangled in someone who had history with his best friend. But the truth stuck with him like a splinter under skin. Every little thing reminded him of her. Her laugh played like a song in his head, and he caught himself searching for her face in passing crowds. He couldn't even look at that damn diner without feeling like something important had slipped through his fingers. Michael hadn't said much since that night either. Ronald figured he was staying away out of guilt or maybe pride. Either way, it suited him fine. The distance gave him time to think, to sit with his feelings, and try to untangle them from the mess of doubt and jealousy he'd built up. But then Nicole showed up again, uninvited as usual, acting like the world hadn't fallen apart. Just weeks ago, she caught him leaving the gym, leaning against his car like she belonged there. Same red lipstick, same smug confidence. "You look like hell," she said, by way of greeting. Ronald didn't even crack a smile. "What do you want, Nicole?" She shrugged. "Just checking in. Heard you and Latasha fell apart. Can't say I'm surprised." He opened the door, but she stepped in the way. "She wasn't right for you," she added. "You need someone who gets you, someone who's already been there." "Like you?" Ronald said, flat. Nicole didn't flinch. "You think she didn't know what she was doing? Dating you while having Michael in her pocket the whole time? Come on, Ron, wake up." Ronald shut the door without another word and drove off. But her words lingered like smoke in his lungs. That was Nicole's gift, planting just enough doubt to make him wonder. But deep down, a part of him didn't believe it. Latasha never lied to him, not once. She gave pieces of herself that no one else ever had, not even Nicole when they were together. And maybe that was what scared him. It was easier to run than to face that kind of honesty. A week later, Ronald sat on his apartment floor, flipping through an old notebook he hadn't touched in years. Inside were poems he'd written back when life felt a little lighter, before all the heartbreak. Most of them were trash, but one stood out. It was a short piece about second chances, about how sometimes you don't get to keep the thing you love, but you still owe it the truth. And that's what made him pick up the phone. Latasha didn't answer the first time, or the second, but on the third try, she picked up. Her voice was quiet, almost cautious. "Hello?" "It's me," Ronald said. "I know I've got no right to ask, but can we talk? Just talk." There was a pause. Then, "Where?" He met her at the bookstore Michael had mentioned. A quiet little place with dusty shelves and soft jazz playing low in the background. She was already there, flipping through a paperback, wearing that same calm energy that had drawn him in from the start. "I'm not here to argue," Ronald said, sitting beside her. "I'm not here to fix anything either. I need to say something." She looked at him but didn't interrupt. "I messed up. I let my fear of being second choice turn into something ugly. I didn't trust you. I didn't even give you the chance to explain." She nodded slowly. "That's true. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want you to know I was wrong." For a moment, silence sat heavy between them. Then Latasha closed her book and said, "Michael kissed me. Once. A long time ago. I didn't kiss back. I told him it wasn't gonna happen. And that was it. I never lied to you." Ronald felt something twist in his gut. Not jealousy this time. Guilt. "I believe you," he said. "Too late, maybe. But I do." Latasha sighed. "I needed you to fight for me, just once. But you didn't. You walked away." "I know," he whispered. "And I regret it every day. She looked at him, eyes soft but tired. I'm not angry anymore, Ronald. But I'm not standing still either. I've moved forward. I had to. He nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. I'm glad you did. You deserve that. And, just like that, the moment passed. She stood, gave him a small smile, and walked out of the bookstore. Again, only this time, Ronald didn't chase her, because maybe love wasn't about who loved harder. Maybe it was about who could finally learn to let go. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it, especially when someone new walks into the story. A month passed. Ronald tried to keep himself busy. Went back to work full-time. Joined a book club he never thought he'd care about. Even started therapy just to understand why he kept pushing people away. It helped, slowly. The noise in his head got quieter. He stopped checking Latasha's socials, stopped wondering where she was or who she was with. But that didn't mean he stopped feeling something. That feeling just got buried deeper, somewhere behind habit and healing. Michael reached out once during that time. A half-hearted message that read, "We good." Ronald stared at it for 10 minutes and never replied. Some things just didn't go back to how they were. Not after trust cracked like that. He didn't hate him, but he didn't want to be around someone who'd kept a secret like that either. You don't compete with your best friend over a woman and expect things to stay cool. At least not with Ronald. One Saturday morning, Ronald sat alone at a cafe near his apartment, sipping on lukewarm coffee and reading something forgettable, when a voice interrupted him. Are you always this focused? Or just pretending to avoid conversation? He looked up and saw her. Not Latasha, not Nicole. Someone new. She had caramel skin, short, curly hair, and an easy smile that carried no expectations. Just light, pure light, depends on who's asking, Ronald said, half grinning. Nicole's little sister, she said. Ronald blinked. Wait, what? She chuckled. Kidding. I'm Talia. You looked lonely. Thought I'd save you. He laughed, really laughed. A short, surprised burst he hadn't felt in weeks. Ronald. Nice to meet you, Ronald. She sat down without waiting for an invite and glanced at the book in his hand. You into sad endings, he shrugged. Used to be. Talia had this way of making space feel lighter. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't asking about his past or poking into his wounds. She just existed there with him, sipping on her iced matcha and teasing him for his music taste. They ended up walking through the park after coffee for hours, talking about everything and nothing. She worked in event planning, loved salsa dancing, and hated the word moist. She didn't ask if he was single, didn't flirt too much, just listened, shared, and made him feel like maybe, just maybe, things didn't always have to end in pain. That night, when Ronald got home, he didn't think about Latasha for the first time in what felt like forever. That was new, but then 2 days later, she called Latasha. He let the phone ring twice before answering. Hey, she said softly. I know it's late. He sat on the edge of his bed, suddenly breathless. It's okay. What's up? I saw Michael today, she said. He told me you've been keeping your distance. From both of us. Yeah, I needed space, Ronald said. I get that. I do. I wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Not for what happened, but for how much it hurt you. Ronald closed his eyes. You don't owe me that, Latasha. I broke us. You just survived it. She was quiet a moment. Then, are you seeing someone? He paused. I met someone. Her name's Talia. It's new. Good, she said, her voice tight but sincere. You deserve that. So do you. I'm getting there, she replied. There was a silence between them. heavy but not hostile, like two people finally settling the dust after a storm. "Take care, Ronald," she said at last. "You too, Tasha." He hung up and stared at his ceiling for a while. He didn't feel broken anymore, just different. Like something had ended, yes, but something else had quietly begun. He messaged Talia that night. "Still think I like sad endings," she replied within seconds. "Nah, I think you're just learning how to write better ones." Talia wasn't like anyone Ronald had known before. She didn't try to fix him. She didn't ask too many questions. She showed up. Consistently, honestly, with no pressure and no games. They took their time, meeting for lunches, late night, phone calls, and long walks where neither of them needed to fill the silence. She laughed loud, like she'd never been told to keep it down, and Ronald found himself laughing more too. Not to hide pain, but because he was finally feeling a kind of ease he hadn't known he needed. But even as something new was growing, the ghosts of the past didn't fully fade. Nicole showed up, again, always with perfect timing, always when she wasn't wanted. She came by his apartment unannounced one evening, standing in the hallway like she belonged there. Ronald opened the door and sighed immediately. "I don't have time for this," he muttered, trying to close the door, but she wedged her foot in. "I just want to talk. Talk to someone else." Nicole pushed past him, stepping into the living room like it was still hers. She glanced around, clearly noting changes. The different photos, the new couch, the soft scent of vanilla in the air. "So, this is your new life, vanilla candles, and girl next door vibes. You came here to insult me?" Ronald asked. "No," she said, tossing her coat on a chair. "I came to say I miss you." He blinked. "You've got to be kidding." Nicole stepped closer, her voice lower now. "We had something real, Ronald. You know we did. Latasha was a phase. That girl didn't know how to love you like I did. No," he said quietly. "She just didn't know how to manipulate me like you did." Nicole's jaw clenched, but she didn't deny it. She never had to. She just changed tactics. She's gone, isn't she? And now you're with someone else. Someone who doesn't know who you used to be. "Exactly," Ronald said. "She knows who I am now. That's the difference." Nicole's face shifted, her voice cracking just slightly. "So that's it. You're really done?" He nodded. "Yeah. I was done the minute you smiled when Latasha walked away. That told me everything." Nicole didn't argue anymore. She just stood there a moment longer, then walked out, slamming the door behind her, like it would somehow echo her importance. But it didn't. Not this time. Later that week, Ronald and Talia had dinner at her place. She cooked something spicy with too much garlic and played jazz records while she danced around the kitchen in socks. Ronald watched her, amazed at how someone could feel like home in such a short time. "Can I ask you something?" she said, handing him a plate. "Sure." "Are you still in love with her?" "Latasha, I mean." Ronald didn't answer right away. He looked at his food, then at Talia. "I think a part of me always will be. She was the first woman I let see the real me. But that doesn't mean I want her back." Talia nodded. "Thanks for being honest. Does it bother you?" "Only if you lie about it," she said with a small smile. And just like that, the weight in his chest loosened. Later, as they lay on her couch, watching some old movie they weren't even following, Ronald realized something. He didn't feel second place anymore. Not to Michael, not to the past, not even to the version of himself that had messed things up. With Talia, he was just himself. No competition, no hidden wounds, Just a man learning to be better. But peace doesn't always last forever. And just as Ronald was settling into this new chapter, the past came knocking one last time. Only this time, it wasn't Nicole or Michael, it was Latasha. She stood outside his building one rainy evening, soaked to the bone, looking more lost than he'd ever seen her. "I didn't know where else to go," she said, voice trembling. "Something happened. I need you." Ronald stood in the doorway, staring at Latasha, her braids damp and clinging to her cheeks, mascara smudged under her eyes. She was shaking, whether from the cold or something deeper, he couldn't tell. "Tasha, what happened?" he asked, stepping aside to let her in. She walked in slowly, arms wrapped tight around herself, her usual grace buried beneath exhaustion and fear. He shut the door gently behind her and grabbed a towel, handing it to her wordlessly. She didn't answer. Right away, just sat on the couch, staring at the floor like the words were stuck in her throat. "Take your time," Ronald said. Sitting across from her, she wiped her face with the towel, took a shaky breath, and finally said, "It's Michael." His chest tightened. "What about him?" "I was seeing someone after you and I stopped. Nothing serious. Just trying to move on," she said quietly. And then Michael showed up again, said he still cared, said he regretted everything. Ronald's jaw clenched, but he stayed quiet. "I told him no. I told him I wasn't in that place anymore, and he just snapped." She looked up at him, eyes wide, haunted. "He's been showing up at my apartment, calling from different numbers. I blocked him, but he started leaving notes. On my car. At my job." Ronald felt a heat rise in his chest. "Why didn't you tell someone sooner? Call the police?" "I did, but they brushed it off. Said unless he physically hurt me, there wasn't much they could do. Not enough to press charges." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I didn't know where else to go. And I didn't want to come here. I didn't want to mess up. Whatever you've started with Talia, I swear." Ronald stood and paced the room. His mind was racing. Anger, concern, guilt, all tangled up. "You should have come sooner. I was scared," she whispered. "Not of him, of what it would mean, coming back here." He looked at her then, really looked at her. The same woman he'd once loved so deeply it scared him. The one he'd walked away from, because his pride got louder than his heart. And now, here she was, trusting him with something vulnerable and dangerous. He sat beside her. "You're safe here. I promise you that." Latasha nodded, but tears slipped from her eyes anyway. "I didn't want to still need you." He placed a hand gently over hers. "Needing someone isn't weakness, Tasha. It's just human." That night, she stayed on the couch. Ronald offered his bed, but she refused. He left her with warm blankets, soft clothes, and a silent promise to keep watch. He barely slept. His phone buzzed once. "Talia, you good? Haven't heard from you today." He didn't reply, not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know how to explain what was happening. Not yet. The next morning, he made coffee and pancakes. Latasha shuffled into the kitchen, eyes puffy, but calmer than the night before. "I'll go back home today," she said quietly. "I just needed one night." "You'll stay until this is handled," Ronald said firmly. "We're not playing games with this." She looked at him with something like gratitude and pain all rolled into one. "You're a good man, Ronald." He shook his head. "No, I'm just trying to do right by you now." But deep down, he knew it was more than that. He still cared, still felt that instinct to protect her. Even if the love had shifted into something quieter. Later that day, he finally called Talia. She answered quickly, cheerful. "Hey, stranger. Miss me?" His throat tightened. "Can we talk?" He explained everything. Not just the facts, but the feelings too. How Latasia had shown up. How scared she looked. How it brought back all the old instincts. Talia didn't interrupt once. When he finished, the line was quiet for a beat. Then she said, "Thank you for telling me. You're not mad." "No, I'm not Nicole Ronald. I don't punish people for caring about others. I just needed to hear the truth." He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "But," she added, "I also need to know, are you still holding on to her?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "I don't think I am. But when she looked at me like that, it did something to me." "I get it," Talia said, "but I won't stay in a triangle. So when this is over, when she's safe, you have to decide where your heart is." "I will. I hope it's with me," she said softly. "But if it's not, I'll walk away with my peace." The call ended. Ronald stood there for a long time, phone in hand, heart split between what had been and what could still be. And then came the knock on the door. Again, Michael. Ronald opened the door and came face to face with the man he used to call a brother. Michael stood there, looking rough, dark circles under his eyes, jaw tight, wearing a hoodie that hadn't been washed in a while. Rain tapped the concrete behind him, adding tension to an already heavy moment. "I need to talk to her," Michael said, voice low, almost pleading. Ronald stepped halfway into the doorway, blocking the entrance. "That's not happening." "She's in there, isn't she?" Michael shifted, trying to glance past Ronald. "Yeah, and you're not getting near her. Not now. Not ever again." Michael clenched his jaw. "Come on, man. You know me. I wouldn't hurt her." Ronald's stare didn't flinch. Then why? Is she terrified to sleep in her own damn apartment? Michael ran a hand over his face. "She's overreacting." "Bullshit," Ronald snapped. "She came here soaked and shaking, and the only name out of her mouth was yours." Michael's eyes narrowed. "You really think I'm the bad guy in all this?" Ronald took a step closer. "I think you're a man who had his shot, who kissed someone he knew I loved. And now that she's finally healing, you're dragging her backward. That's what I think." Michael's voice rose, sharper now. "She was never yours to begin with." Ronald didn't punch him. He wanted to. Every nerve in his body screamed for it. But he didn't. Instead, he lowered his voice to something dead calm. "Leave, before I call the cops." Michael stared at him for a long moment, something ugly flickering behind his eyes. Then he scoffed and turned away. "You always think you're better than everyone. Just wait, Ronald. She'll break you too." Ronald shut the door and locked it. Inside, Latasia was standing near the hallway, arms crossed, pale. "He's gone," Ronald said. She nodded. "I heard everything." "I won't let him come near you again," Ronald added. "I know." She sat on the couch and hugged a pillow close to her chest. "It's like he turned into a stranger overnight. He was never like that before." Ronald sat beside her. "Sometimes people just hide who they are until they're told no." Latasia gave a hollow laugh. "I used to think Michael was the safe one, the soft one. You were the intense one, the guarded one. And now I think I was wrong about both of you." She looked at him then. Really looked. "I never stopped caring about you, Ronald. I tried. God knows I tried. But you pulled away, and Michael was familiar. I didn't go looking for it. But when it started, I thought maybe I could replace the ache." He didn't flinch. "And did it work?" "No," she whispered. "It just made the ache louder." Ronald stared at her, heart heavy, but steady. "Talia's been good to me. Real good. She deserves honesty. So do you." Latasia nodded. "I'm not here to get you back. I came here because I didn't feel safe. That's it. What you have with her. Don't ruin it trying to save me. That's not what I'm doing. She gave him a sad smile. Maybe not, but that's how it'll look from the outside. And if you care about her even half as much as I think you do, you'll be careful with her heart. Ronald sat back, exhaling slowly. I can't let you go through this alone. I'm not asking you to, she said. I'm just asking you not to lose yourself in fixing me. They sat in silence for a while. No drama, no tension, just two people who'd loved hard and crashed harder, trying to untangle what still lingered between them. The next morning, Ronald drove her to her sister's place, 2 cities over, where she'd stay for a while. Somewhere quiet, somewhere. Michael wouldn't think to look. She hugged him before she left. Not like someone asking for another chance. Just someone saying thank you. When Ronald got home, Talia was waiting on the steps of his building. He paused. You talked to her. She messaged me, Talia said. Told me she was leaving town. Told me she didn't want to be in the middle anymore. Ronald nodded. I didn't ask her to. I know, Talia said, studying him. But I have. To ask now. Where's your heart? Ronald looked her in the eyes. Steady. With you. I didn't realize how much until I almost lost it. She didn't say anything at first. Then she walked up and kissed him. Soft. Sure. Good, she said. Because I'm not second to anyone either. Ronald had never felt peace like this before. Not even in the early days with Latasha, when everything felt electric and fragile. Or with Nicole, where the highs were high, but the lows could rip through him like glass. With Talia, everything was solid, safe, and not the kind of safe that made you bored or restless. The kind that made you breathe deeper, sleep better, walk lighter. They spent more time together now, not out of obligation or guilt, but because they genuinely enjoyed it. Sunday mornings turned into a quiet ritual. She made tea, he made eggs, and they sat by the window, listening to lo-fi beats and planning imaginary road trips they hadn't yet taken. He didn't have to perform around her. She didn't expect perfection. She expected presence. But peace, like anything real, had to be maintained. It wasn't automatic. It had to be earned. One night, Talia brought up the question again, not with suspicion, but with quiet intention. Do you still love her? She asked as they lay in bed, lights off, her head on his chest. Ronald was silent for a moment before answering. I love who she was to me, who I was with her, but not the way I love you. Explain, she said softly. With her, it felt like I had something to prove, like I had to keep earning her love by being better, stronger, less broken. And I was afraid all the time that I wasn't enough. With you, I don't feel like I'm being tested. Talia didn't say anything for a long time, and for a second, Ronald thought maybe he'd said the wrong thing. But then she kissed his shoulder and whispered, That's the kind of love I've always wanted. Later that week, Latasha messaged him. He's been quiet. No calls. No notes. I think he got the message. Good. Stay safe. I will. And thank you again for everything. You don't owe me anything, but you still showed up. That meant more than I can say. Ronald stared at the message for a moment before replying, You deserve that much. And more. It was closure. Not a door swinging open again. And both of them felt it. That thread between them had finally settled. Not snapped, just untied, but peace didn't mean forgetting. One afternoon, Ronald got a call from Nicole's number. He hesitated, then answered. Nicole. She didn't waste time. Michael's in rehab. That caught him off guard. Rehab? Yeah. Apparently he was deeper into things than we knew. Pills. Booze. His sister found him passed out in his car last week. Ronald didn't say anything. I figured you'd want to know. Whatever happened between you two, he was still your friend once, he sighed. Thanks for telling me. Nicole paused. I meant what I said before, about missing you. But I see now it wasn't really you I missed. It was control. That's the first honest thing I've heard you say in a long time. She let out a dry laugh. Yeah, well, growth. They hung up. Ronald didn't feel hate for Michael anymore. He felt pity, and maybe a little sadness, because they had shared years together, laughter, memories, dreams of the future. But people change, sometimes too much, sometimes in ways they can't come back from. A week later, Ronald took Talia to a little jazz bar, tucked away in a quiet part of the city. Live music, dim lighting, good wine. She wore a navy dress that caught the light just right, and he couldn't stop staring at her, like he was still surprised she chose him. They danced. Not fancy, not choreographed. Just slow. Close. Honest. At one point she leaned in and whispered, "If I fall harder, you better catch me." He smiled into her hair. Already have. The past was behind him now. Not erased, but finally at rest. He had loved Latasha, maybe still did in some quiet way, but it was Talia who rebuilt him, who held his broken parts without trying to reshape them. It was Talia who made him feel seen, not saved. For the first time in a long time, Ronald wasn't looking back anymore. 3 months later, everything felt different. Not just in Ronald's life, but in who he was. The man who used to question every glance, every silence, every slow reply. He wasn't running the show anymore. That version of him, the one who held love in a clenched fist, afraid to lose it, had been replaced by someone softer, more still, because that's what Talia did. She didn't just love him. She made room for him to become someone better, without ever asking for it. They were in Savannah for the weekend. A spontaneous road trip she'd planned, with quiet streets, warm breezes, and no agenda. Ronald had never cared for travel much, before her. Now he couldn't imagine sitting still too long, not when the world felt this full again. One afternoon, while they were walking near the river, she stopped, pulled her camera from her bag, and took a photo of him mid-laugh. What was that for? He asked. You looked happy. Like not just in the moment. Happy, she said. I wanted to keep that. He reached for her hand and didn't let go. I think I'm going to look like this a lot more often. They sat on a bench near the water, the sky painted orange and gold, the air thick with the scent of salt and old wood. Talia rested her head on his shoulder, and Ronald found himself thinking about everything that brought him here. Latasha, Michael, Nicole, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger that used to live in his chest like a second heartbeat, and yet none of it haunted him now. He'd checked in on Latasha recently. Just a short message. She was doing better, finding new work, going to therapy, learning to breathe again. She had thanked him for caring, for stepping up when she needed someone. That was the last message they exchanged. No flirting, no long stories, just mutual respect and then space. Michael, still in rehab, had written Ronald a letter, handwritten, apologizing, not for falling in love, but for how he handled it, for lying, for crossing lines. The letter didn't ask for friendship back. It just said, I hope you're living better than I am. You always had that in you. Ronald kept the letter in a drawer. He didn't need to reread it. He just needed to know it existed. Nicole was a name he didn't think of much anymore. She was part of a story that ended a long time ago. One of those messy chapters you don't rip out but don't revisit either. He turned to Talia, brushing her curls gently behind her ear. I was scared, he said suddenly. When I first met you, I thought, I was too tired to love anyone again. She looked up at him, smiling softly. And now I'm scared of losing you. But I know I won't. Not unless I forget how to treat you right. Talia didn't respond with words. She just kissed him, slow and sure, and pulled him close, like she already knew he wouldn't forget. That night, back at their little rental, he made dinner while she read on the couch. Halfway through slicing bell peppers, he called her name. Talia. She looked up. I think I want to spend the rest of my life with you. She blinked, caught off guard, but smiled. You think? I know, he corrected, grinning. But I'm saying it that way, so I don't scare you off. She walked into the kitchen, wrapped her arms around him from behind, and said into his back, You'd have to work real hard to scare me away. He put the knife down, turned around, and kissed her, like it was the only language he knew. They didn't get engaged that night, or the next. There was no dramatic scene, no kneeling under fireworks, just two people, learning how to hold each other right, promising things with actions before words. But one day, not far off, he would ask, and she'd say yes. Because in a world full of almosts and broken tries, they had found something rare, not perfect, not without scars, just real, and that was more than enough. The end.